everyone, welcome back to our channel. I'm Danielle, your resident romantic.
And I'm Lindsay, the fantasy fan, and we are friends
till the book ends. Today we're doing kind of a little bit of a Q&A video. It's actually, I believe it was the mid-year
book freakout tag.
Yes, book freakout tag. Lindsay knows all the deets, so I don't know why I started this, but basically there are questions, we are going to answer them. Yeah.
So this tag, we'll leave the creators of the content tag down below. We thought it would just be kind of a fun way to wrap up our reading thus far. We've had some good ones and we've had some not so good ones, so we wanted to kind of give you a little summary. Alright, so the first question is, what is the best book that you have read so far this year? So for me personally, that answer, I have two because I can't ever just stick to the rules. So either From Blood and Ash by JLA, which we already know is quality content here on this channel, or Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. These two have really been standouts for me thus far. This is a King Arthur retelling, and this is a fantasy romance. Fantastic. Just go read them. No!
The best book that I've read so far this year would be Kiss My Cupcake by Helena Hunting. I think it's such a cute rom-com book. It involves baking, it involves a bar, it involves kind of clashing those two together, and I think it was a super cute love story, and I just like Helena Hunting.
Okay, so the second question is, what is the best sequel that you have read so far this year? So for me, that would be Good Girl, Bad Blood by Holly Jackson. That is the second book in the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series, where we're following a kind of teenage detective named Pip who, there's a murder in her town from a couple years ago that everybody thinks the boyfriend did, but then the boyfriend died, and so nobody really knows what happened, and she's determined to clear his name. And in this second book, it was just as fantastic. They're great audiobooks, so I highly recommend.
Fantastic. My favorite sequel this year is Wildcard by Marie Lu, which if you don't know, I really liked Warcross by her, which is the first book. It is a duology. It is so cool. It's got sci-fi. It's got a little bit of romance. It's got literally everything. I gave it a 6 out of 5 for the first book and a 5 out of 5 for the second book. So if you have not picked it up, go pick it up.
That's a ringing endorsement.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so the third question is, what is a new release you haven't read yet, but you want to get to? So for me, the two that I have been, for some reason, putting off, is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry and Tokyo Ever After by Amiko Jean. Both of those books, they're stunning covers, they're gorgeous, they're beautiful. I own them. I'm too lazy to get them, but I own them, and I was so excited when I got them to read them, and I just haven't, but I'm gonna do it, probably.
I am gonna do a little cop-out answer here. So the new release that I'm looking forward to is the third book in the Blood and Ash series. I have not started reading it yet, but I'm just looking forward to the series in general, but Blood and Ash technically isn't a new release. The third book is. So I'm just looking forward to reading all of those in general.
I agree with that.
JLA has my heart.
Yeah. Okay, so the fourth question is, what is the most anticipated book release for the second half of the year? So for me, I would either say The Heart Principle by Helen Huang, which is the third book in the Kiss Quotient series, which is following different characters who are usually Asian, and there's usually a character that has autism or is on the spectrum or has some sort of like OCD. So it's really great representation. The first two books were just chef's kiss fantastic. They were steamy. The characters just jive well together. And then the third book in the Skyward series by Brandon Sanderson is coming out. It's called Cytonic. The first two books were both 5 stars for me. It's a young adult sci-fi series. And if you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend it because they're hilarious and they're just so good.
One I'm looking forward to that is coming out in August is Beyond the Mapped Stars by Rosalind Eves. This is on kind of finding yourself, finding true love, and a little bit of science mixed in there. So I think it's going to be a nice feel-good book that I'm looking forward to reading.
So the next question is, what is the biggest disappointment, the biggest book that disappointed you this year? The biggest disappointment for me ended up being This Golden Flame by Emily Victoria. This is a book I got in my fairy loot box, and it sounded so good. It's kind of like a sci-fi fantasy with automatons, and like they have to stop this like evil dude, but this book just ended up almost putting me in like a massive reading slump. It took me like 2 weeks to read such a small book, and I just felt like the characters were underdeveloped, the plot was underdeveloped. This is the author's first book, so I feel kind of bad for saying it was my biggest disappointment, but it just, potential was good, but the actual execution just wasn't it.
Yes. And my most disappointing book this year was Fireblood by Ellie Blake. In case you guys have not heard me talk about it, I read Frostblood by Ellie Blake when Lindsay and I did a book swap. It was great. It knocked it out of the park. It is a trilogy, so I got the second book. The second book almost made me stop reading the trilogy. It was so disappointing. Like, you went from way up here in the first book to way down here in the second book, and I was like, God, I wonder what the third book's going to be like. But the third book turned out great. But Fireblood by Ellie Blake, that was a solid no from me.
So the next question is, what was the biggest surprise that you read this year? What book really surprised you? And for me, I'm going to have to go with The Infinity Courts by Akemi Dawn Bowman. This came out, I believe, in March or April, so pretty recently. And I read it this past month in June. And it was so good. Essentially, you're following a girl who is murdered, and she goes to the afterlife where your AI, like your consciousness is uploaded into this, like, digital afterlife thing, but there's an evil AI who's like Siri, but her name's Ophelia, and she's trying to like take it over. And so essentially she just kind of has to save the day. But it was so more, the ending was just like, I screamed. My dad was like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm clearly reading and I'm having a moment. It was so good. I can't wait for the second book. I just had heard nothing about it. And more people need to talk about it because you probably will scream too.
So the most surprising book for me so far this year was Like a Love Story by Abdeen Nazemian. I got so much more out of it than I thought I would going into it, and I still was surprised with the epilogue at the end. Like, I wasn't expecting that kind of time jump, so maybe it's not as big of a surprise as I might be describing it as, but it was just, for me, it was very surprising, and it was a great read.
So our next question is, what is your favorite new author? And for me, that has to be Silvia Moreno Garcia, who, I know you like it when I say it. I'm not Spanish, but I pretend that I can do the accent. But she has written both Mexican Gothic and Gods of Jade and Shadow, which were both 4.5-star reads for me. They were so good and unique. And I have her first book, I believe it's called The Beautiful Ones, that was republished this past year, and I'm really excited to read that. But then she also has a new book coming out in August called Velvet Was the Night, which the cover is stunning. So I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm so happy that I read her books this year.
For me, my favorite new author is actually going to be Talia Hibbert. We read Take a Hint, Dani Brown by her, and I just truly loved her writing and representation and her story plot build-up, like, all around fantastic author. I'm looking forward to reading her other books, the two in those kind of companion series, but also all of her, like, backlisted books. So can't wait.
You'll be busy for a while.
I will be. I certainly will be.
So our next question is, what is your newest fictional crush? Once again, I have two answers because I'm a rule breaker. What can I say? So obviously Hawk Flynn from Blood and Ash. I mean, you can't beat him. He's fantastic. I can't wait till you read it and understand.
I know.
That
I'll get there. I will, I promise.
He permeates your dreams, your consciousness, your thoughts. I wish he was real. And then my other fictional crush would be Hal Cavendish from Down Comes the Night, which is a book that more people should read. And he's kind of they're very similar. They're very similar. They're kind of broody. They might be bad. They might be good. Morally gray characters.
Sorry.
She's like, you're boring. You have such a boring type. No, they were so good. Hal is like bad, but kind of he's good underneath it. You just kind of have to peel the layers back like an onion. So cute.
I guess my fictional crush would be Hideo Tamaka from Warcross. I know that there are some, like, blurry lines if you read the duology, but my heart goes out to him, and I can't help but fall in love with him, and I would love to meet him in person.
And the next question is, who is your newest favorite fictional character? And I'm going with Finley from Finley Donovan is killing it. She is hilarious. So Finley Donovan is killing it as following a mom named Finley who writes kind of these murder mystery books. And she goes to a Panera to meet with her editor, and she's describing her newest book, and the woman next to her thinks that she's a contract killer, a killer for hire. So she hires her to kill her husband, and shenanigans ensue. It's hilarious. Finley is just down to earth. She's so funny. She just gets herself into these situations and then has to, like, drag herself out of them. And she just was so enjoyable to read about, and I kind of wish she was my friend, but she was such a good character.
For me, not to talk about Take a Hint, Dani Brown again, but it's gonna be Dani Brown because she was just such a fierce, boss-ass bitch kind of character. And it's like, yes, that is who you aim to be. Like, that is who I want to be. I want to take hints from her, and I don't know. I know that she had issues in a relationship, but aside from that, I thought she was pretty perfect.
Yeah.
So, yeah, she's gonna have to be my favorite character.
The next question is a book that made you cry. Danielle probably has a lot more of
So
these
many.
than I do. I'm going to have to go with 1,000 Ships by Natalie Haynes. This is a retelling of the Trojan War that was just heartbreaking. It's from the perspective of the women. So you're hearing from the people whose lives were ruined by this war as the men went off to fight and the women kind of had to pick up the pieces and do their own thing, and how all those Greek people like Homer and stuff, he never talks about them. So it was just so heartbreaking, so good. I cried at the end.
One that absolutely had me bawling my eyes out is Our Darkest Night by Jennifer Robson. This is a fictional, not really retelling, but like point of view of the Holocaust.
Oh.
And it is about, there is this Jewish girl and this non-Jewish family takes her in. She pretends to be married to this guy to, kind of cover that up, and you want to have so much hope, but at the same time there's so much darkness going on, and it was constantly, it had me crying, but it was such a good book. Yeah. Those books always make me cry, but they're so worth it.
So the next prompt is, what's a book that made you happy? And for this one, I'm going to have to go with the first book in the Murderbot series, All Systems Red by Martha Wells. These are a set of little novellas, so they're under 200 pages, so super quick to read. But in it, you're following Murderbot, he has named himself Murderbot, who's like this AI kind of, but Murderbot is hilarious. They just want to watch TV all day and just relax, and they don't want to deal with humans, but their whole job, their whole purpose is to be a protector of humans when they go out into space and like do things, kind of like a guard, and he just doesn't want to do it. But they are so witty and sarcastic, and I was like cracking up. I'm a teacher, so I was in class reading this one day, and I was like giggling, and my students were like, what is wrong with her? And I was like, they're funny. So you should definitely check them out if you haven't already.
One book that really made me happy was The X Talk by Rachel Lynn Solomon. If you have not read it yet, you absolutely need to go do it. It was a fantastic read. It was fantastic. It was cute. It was witty. It was fun. I had so much fun reading it. So everyone, please go read it. It made me happy.
Well, she wrote that other book that we really liked.
Today, Tonight, Tomorrow.
So maybe she's a new fave.
She might be.
Okay, so the next question is, what's the most beautiful book you've gotten this year? And that for me is going to have to be the Lit Joy Crate edition of Pride and Prejudice, because look, it's so shiny and beautiful, and it's got gilded edges.
Oh, pretty.
I know, and the end papers, and there's like drawings throughout that are just beautiful. If I could find one. Like,
oh,
what are you? I believe that this restocks like periodically on the website, so if you want to get it, you should. I think it's worth every penny if you are a Jane Austen lover like I am, but this just has to take the cake. Nothing could beat this.
The best for me, I did end up getting the Anna and the French Kiss collector's edition that I talked about at the Barnes & Nobles, so even if it's not my favorite book, I still think it is such a beautiful cover, and collector's editions always look cooler.
They do.
That's going to have to be one of the most beautiful. I don't physically have it here because we're chilling at Lindsay's, but
hence the setup today, yes.
But go look it up.
Very last question is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? I mean, truly,
all of them.
Limitless. The answer does not exist.
Yes.
But for me personally, the two that are most heavily weighing on my soul, I still have not bought and read Unravel the Dusk, which is the second book in the Spin the Dawn duology that Danielle and I buddy read together.
Yes.
I really ended up liking the first book, so I really wanted to get to the second, but for some reason I've just been dragging my feet. And then City of Brass, which I have talked about before several times on TBRs. I just haven't gotten to it, but everybody loves it. I think I'm gonna love it. It's just kind of big.
It is a little chunky.
It's a little chunky, so I've been putting it off, but I know I'm gonna like it, so I have to just buckle down and do it by the end of the year.
For me, it is going to be the From Blood and Ash series. Like, okay, again, there's so many books that I need to read by the end of the year, but I need to read Jennifer L. Trout. I need to start the 3 books in her series, be ready for the 4th one. Yes. I need to do that by the end of 2021, so that is the goal. Well, that is all the questions for this tag. If you guys want to answer any of them down below, feel free to let us know. We love talking about books with you guys and, getting new suggestions from you all. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.
Bye!